One of the most common questions asked by PC builders is the difference in performance between 8GB and 4GB of RAM. The general consensus is that at least 8GB is needed to avoid stuttering while playing modern games, and some even suggesting that 8GB is already being stretched thin and 16GB is the way to go. On top of that, many newer games state that 8GB of RAM is the minimum requirements to even run the game. Today we're going to see whether or not this is the case by benchmarking both 4 and 8GB of RAM in my own personal rig on some demanding and not so demanding games. Will 4GB be able to keep up, or will 8GB be the way to go? Let's find out. Starting with ARMA 3, it states that a minimum of 4GB is required and recommends 6GB, but as you can see, 4GB seems like plenty to run it smoothly. The 8GB achieved a higher average, but it was nothing drastic. The 9 FPS minimum comes from when the game is saving, so that should be ignored, but there is no noticeable stutter using both configurations. Battlefield 4 also saw very little difference in FPS between both memory sizes. It suggests 4 as the minimum and 8GB as the recommended, but the latter didn't seem to have much of an impact on FPS. It actually shows 8GB performing worse, but this of course is just the margin of error. Perhaps if a lot was happening on screen, the 8GB would make a difference, but it didn't here. Bioshock Infinite once again showed similar results, but there was some occasional stutter with the 4GB of RAM, despite the minimum requirement being 2 and the recommended being 4. The 8GB of memory eliminated all of this stutter. Dirt Rally performed identically on both setups. It recommends 8GB with a minimum of 4. It isn't the most demanding title anyway, so the results are kind of unsurprising. Fallout 4 actually states both the minimum and recommended requirements as 8GB, but once again both configs perform identically, even in an intensive area such as Diamond City. Kind of expected though, as this game is running on a very old, albeit heavily modified, game engine that was built for 2GB or less. Far Cry 4 saw a little boost in the minimum frame rate when 8GB was used, but following the trend, the results were pretty much the same. This game also states 4 as the minimum and 8 as the recommended. In GTA 5 we see the biggest overall difference with a substantial jump in both minimum and average FPS when going from 4 to 8GB. While playing with 4GB, the game starts off well, but over time starts stuttering more and more as the memory gets used up. 8GB eliminates this problem and is definitely the way to go with this game. Rise of the Tomb Raider is the newest game in these benchmarks, and the 4GB still performs well despite the game recommending 6 as the minimum. Perhaps the game starts stuttering as time goes on in gameplay, but I wasn't able to test that. We did see a nice 5 FPS boost up to 30 FPS when using the 8GB. Rocket League, as expected, performed well with both configs, but there was a huge difference between both minimums for some reason. This isn't very noticeable on a 60Hz monitor, but definitely would be at higher refresh rates. Well, there you have it. There is barely any difference between 4 and 8GB of RAM in these benchmarks anyway. Most of the time the extra memory did give a nice boost to the minimum and eliminated any stutter seen when using the lesser amount. That kind of surprised me, considering how vocal people are in suggesting that 8GB is the minimum these days. They may have a point though. The noticeable difference was in GTA 5, where there was a lot of stuttering and it got worse as you kept playing. GTA 5 shows that 4GB of RAM for gaming is probably on its way out. A lot of future games are probably going to take advantage of the full 8GB, and 4GB won't cut it anymore. RAM is super cheap anyway, so there's no better time to upgrade and make sure that your PC is future-proofed, at least in the memory department. However, as this video shows, 4GB is still plenty for most games out today, and is more than enough for basic tasks such as web browsing and video streaming. Alright guys, that's the end of this short video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this was interesting and informative for you, and if so, make sure to leave a like. If you didn't like it, leave a dislike, and possibly subscribe for new contents like this. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.